For our next panel, Spaces Coming Alive, Outdoor Recreation and Community, I am pleased to announce our moderator, Adrian Smochek, who is a Recreation and Conservation Advisor with the Bureau of Recreation and Conservation Department of Conservation and National Resources. Please give a warm welcome to Adrian.
Good afternoon, everybody. As was mentioned, my name is Adrian Smochek, and I have the privilege of serving as a regional advisor for DCNR for the Bureau of Recreation and Conservation. And most people think of DCNR and think of our state parks or our millions of acres of state forest lands, but my bureau is a little bit smaller. And what we do is provide grant funding and technical assistance to our various partners across the state that include nonprofits and local governments. And we do this through our Community Conservation and Partnerships Program, known as C2P2 for short. This is just a quick glimpse of the type of projects that we fund. And I'm giving a shameless plug of our programming here. I won't dwell on this, but if you have any questions about our programming, you can certainly see me. I have some brochures with me. I have my business cards with me. Happy to talk with you about any interest in our grant programming. I do want to mention that we have a couple of newly released strategic plans. Our Outdoor Spaces, Shared Spaces document is the statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. And we also just released our Pennsylvania Land and Water Trail Network strategic plan, and that felt very appropriate to mention those here today. They're available on our website for reference. But as part of those plans, we have some interesting statistics related to outdoor recreation and specifically to trails. Some priorities that we've accomplished since the last set of strategic plans were released 5 years ago, specifically related to trails, include increasing trail mileage in the state to 14,000 miles on both public and private lands. We've closed 12 identified trail gaps in the state, including 5 of our top 10 critical trail gaps. And we've awarded 30 different DCNR grants to projects addressing these trail gaps. In total, more than 138 million state and federal dollars have been allocated to trail projects. That's not just DCNR funding, that's through some of our sister agencies. DCED and PennDOT also fund trail work. But it's important to keep in mind that when thinking about trails, these aren't just spaces that we put our feet. We also include and think about water trail networks, kayaking, boating, motorized trails, ATV and snowmobile use. We know these systems are having economic impact in the communities in which they exist. And in the last 5-year period, we saw one particular ATV trail, and that's why I have this slide up here primarily. You'll notice in that big blue blob on the bottom, the little ATV symbol, that particular trail, the North Central Regional ATV Trail, it grew from 280 to 600 miles in the last 5 years. That one trail system alone is estimated to have an economic impact annually of $13.1 million. Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. So I felt it was relevant to mention that and kind of open with the idea that there is a massive economic impact happening from outdoor recreation and investing in this infrastructure. Our strategic planning has really opened up the idea that people want these trail systems. Community or regional trail systems were identified as the highest priority for investment in recreation facilities over the next 5 years. More trails, that was kind of a recurring theme, more trails close to home, safety on trails, trail connections. These are all common requests. And when DCNR surveyed trail providers, closing those trail gaps, connecting trails to downtown businesses and other key places in the community, that was absolutely a priority that was identified. And I'm looking to our friends here as part of the panel because that's something we're going to address here today. So I don't want to dwell on what I had to say. It's not about me today, but I felt that was a relevant opener to let you know that there is plenty of information out there on the impact that these systems are having. And without any further delay, we have some folks that are going to tell us a little bit more about those developments. My final slide that I just wanted to throw up here for a moment. The QR code that you see is for our annual virtual grant workshop. So if you're interested in potentially participating in that, you can scan that code and register for that. And our website is on that screen as well. So that's more information on any of the programming or any of the planning that I referenced here too. Without any further delay, I want to introduce the first panelist. We have Nick Puzak, with Gibson-Thomas Engineering, speaking about the Route 22 pedestrian bicycle bridge. Nick is a highly experienced engineering professional, and he's a project manager with Gibson-Thomas and the company's lead on this Route 22 pedestrian bicycle bridge project. Nick is native to Indiana County, and have some personal experience with Nick over time, and I have to say that he strikes the perfect balance between his professional approach and his personal passion and the deep love of the communities that he serves. So I'm really excited to hear from Nick. Would you please give him a welcome?
Thanks, Adrian, for the introduction and a small programming change here. When Scott asked me first to come and talk to you guys today, he wanted to focus on the Route 22 bridge, and I will get to that eventually. But I also asked, can I talk about a few other things in the county to try and spread out the wealth across the board here? He said, absolutely. So we will get to the bridge eventually, but I want to start with some other things on the county's docket here. We are the county's engineer for transportation projects primarily. I've been working with the county for 12 years roughly. So I've worked on a lot of these projects, not only for the county, but in the local realm as well. And I want to go through some of these recent ones that we've done and explain the community context, because that's sort of what this forum here is focused on today. I'm going to do a little tour of a few sites in the county. We're going to start at the Tunnel View Historic Site. As you might imagine, that's near Tunnelton. It's a 16-acre site that the county has. It's adjacent to the Conemaugh Dam. There is a portion of the West Penn Trail. There's a kayak launch. There's a large parking area. Several historic features, several iterations of railroad history there. There's an intact portion of Canal Prism. And then just to the north, the Corps of Engineers maintains a facility adjacent to the Conemaugh Dam. So you have a really cool mix of functionality, history, and outdoor recreation all in one spot. The access road serving the county's portion of this facility, it's one of the old construction roads from the dam's construction. And over the years, it's gotten to be in some pretty bad shape. We found some alligator cracking, some base repairs were needed. There was some significant erosion on the slope. It's a long slope down from the core down to the county's property. So we were looking at doing a liquid fuels project there. So the county invested $52,000 of liquid fuels money. We completed the work in August of 23. The work there was done pretty quickly, but the contractor was working fast and he had to make up some time. So he tried to work on a Saturday morning in August. And there were so many people launching kayaks into the stream that day, they had to stop. They told the crews just go home. So just a testament to how much use that site has gotten and how much of a draw that is in southern Indiana County. We're going to go up the river shortly here to Blairsville. The Blairsville Riverfront Trail is a 1.7-mile recreational facility. The borough constructed it in 2012. It's a partial rails to trails facility. It's located mostly within the Conemaugh River Lake flood control reservoir. So 95% of the land the trail makes up is within this reservoir. So on average, 12 days a year, some portion of the trail is underwater. They estimate roughly 12,000 annual trips. And I'm a native of Blairsville. I use the trail pretty often. There's some days where it's pretty thick down there and it's pretty desolate. It's pretty cool to see. You'll note though in the map, a curious thing, there's this wide buffer around Blairsville and it separates the river from the town. And most of that is a result of the 1950s when they built the Conemaugh Dam. So Blairsville is sort of separated, has this buffer that keeps the town away from the recreation opportunities of its river. And as we talked about in previous sessions here, there's been a dramatic increase in water quality of the Conemaugh and several of our other major streams. So the Riverfront Trail provides some connectivity to Blairsville. There's several stream access points that get you down to the stream. You can walk along the riverbed. There's a kayak launch. There's an interpretive nature center that's about a third of the way in. There's also ball fields you can maybe be able to see on the map there on separate sides of Route 217. So if you want to go from one ball field to the other, you don't have to cross the highway. You can just take the trail. The trail itself, though, by 2022, after 10 years of service, it was in kind of poor condition. They had to clean it off every spring. After the flood control, after they released the water at the dam, there's usually a layer of mud there. So all those mud scraping operations took its toll. There's vegetation growing. So we need to do some work on this feature. We worked with PennDOT. We got a transportation alternative set aside grant for almost $250,000, and we were able to resurface the whole trail. We cleaned it off, put a layer of asphalt down, and got that work done in August of 23. And you'll see in the photo there in the lower left, in April of 24, we had a pretty rainy spring, and some of the water got up almost to the bollards on Water Street in Blairsville. And people are actually kayaking the trail. So I don't know how many trails we have in the state where you can kayak and bike both on the same alignment, but we have that in Blairsville, so good tourist draw. Heading up to the northern part of the county, we have the Kintersburg Covered Bridge, built in 1887 for the grand sum of $893. It's a beautiful little facility out there in the countryside. It was bypassed in 77 with a new concrete bridge downstream, so it has been used as a tourist and pedestrian facility since then. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. And it's not uncommon to have just tour buses full of covered bridge people coming to see it. It's one of 4 that we have in the county. It's one of 5 Howell Truss bridges we have in Pennsylvania. So it's a nice little treasure to have in our county. The other 3 bridges are in pretty good shape, but you'll note on that top picture, there's some cribbing underneath the bridge itself. It has a structural failure at the low chord, the upstream side. I'm not sure if it's evident in the lower left picture there, but the bridge dips in the middle, and then it's also rotated counterclockwise towards the upstream side. So without that cribbing, your bridge is going to be in the creek. In the lower right side, you can see the floorboards there. There's a notch in the concrete. Those boards should be up in that notch. The whole bridge has moved several inches off its foundation, so not in good shape. Luckily, though, we cobbled together almost $1 million in TA set-aside funds and some county contributions, and we're going to start work next week on rehabilitating the structure. We're going to tear it down completely. We're going to preserve the truss pieces that are historic. We're going to transport them to a specialized wood shop out in York County. They're going to refurbish everything. We're going to haul it back to the site and rebuild it on the abutments that are there. So very cool from a engineering perspective, but also it's very cool to see this historic resource be preserved. And finally, though, the project a lot of you have been waiting for, the one we were billed for here. Before we get to the bridge, I want to mention, the big picture of what this bridge represents. Probably hard to see from the screens, but we have a series of trails: Westmoreland Heritage Trail, the West Penn Trail, Riverfront Trail, the Hoodlebug Trail, and the 2020 Trail of the Year, the Ghost Town Trail, all across this part of the state. So from Trafford to Evansburg, you have 55 miles as the crow flies of trail potential, with 2 small gaps in southern Indiana County. What makes this difficult is in our locale, when they constructed Route 22 in the 1950s, it bisected Borough Township in many ways. You have the West Penn Trail and the Hoodlebug Trail to the north. You have Pine Ridge Park and the Blairsville Riverfront Trail to the south. Residences to the north, commercial to the south. It's very much an impediment. So they started doing studies to how do we connect these trails as early as 1995. PennDOT said you cannot cross at grade. PennDOT said you cannot go underneath the highway at Route 119. Norfolk Southern still owns the rail line that's to the north, and it's just a physical impossibility to bore a tunnel. And the last side was able to tell we can't teleport across the highway. So what's left? What do we have to work with? And the answer is a bridge. Just to make it very clear, we did not set out to build a bridge over the highway. The goal was to connect the trails and the facilities from one side to the other. A bridge was just a logical conclusion based on engineering judgment and planning studies. So the structure that's being proposed and is under construction now, we're going to have switchbacking ramps on the sides that was gain elevation. We'll have approach spans on either end to aid in visibility, and then we'll have a main span over the highway. Everything's going to be ADA compliant, and we're going to have fencing along the structure to prevent mischief and incidents. I'm going to skip over the design phase because that was 8 years of struggles and ups and downs. We even almost lost Josh Krug at one point in one of the public meetings. It was very, very crazy. But just wanted to mention that we did have a long construction period here. Our goal is to connect, right now, our goal is to connect the Hoodlebug Trail to Pine Ridge Park, and then other gaps we'll address in the future as we go. We led a contract in August of last year for $4.7 million, plus a big chunk of money for construction. Great to see that amount of money brought into the county in infrastructure dollars. That's a great win for us. Work began on site in May. We set the steel girders in September. This month, we're pouring concrete, and then by June of 26, we're going to have a bridge that's open for service. A few construction photos. The first one on the left there is one of the switchbacking ramps before we put the deck on. On the right, we closed Route 22 overnight to set the steel. They lifted the main span in two sections with two cranes, and they put them together and bolted them in place in midair. So the crane operators and the iron workers, they earned their paychecks that night. That was pretty impressive. Next, we have some switchbacking ramps, and we're pouring some concrete on the deck. These were taken earlier this month. We'll look towards the future here. In the center of that picture is Pack Saddle Gap. Once this bridge is complete, it's going to offer a wonderful view of Pack Saddle. You can see the mist there going through the coming down the hills. Also, you can see the hotel at Chestnut Ridge, and hopefully people that visit the bridge are going to spend lots and lots of money at the hotel and bring us those tourism dollars. So just to give you a summary of what this all means to our community, I mentioned that each of these projects has its own individual facets, but the recreation projects in Indiana County, the county is actively investing in them, actively looking to expand them. They're important parts of our infrastructure here, but they have three main benefits that I've identified myself, what I feel are important here. They provide active recreation opportunities for our citizens, and those are tied to positive correlations in health metrics. There's also economic generators via the regional tourism. 375,000 site visits per year can be attributed to our county parks. That does not include the state and federal facilities. All of that for 1.7% of the county's budget. So we're able to bring in people are enjoying our facilities. Byron has a great story that maybe he can tell you afterwards about finding people from out of town at the perfect time. But people are coming to our community to use these facilities. There's also a connection aspect, a connectivity. Not only are these trails and parks connecting us together, connecting our communities together in a physical way, but also there's a figurative connection to our historic past and our industrial heritage here. So a lot of these trails and parks are built upon historical features and industrial parts of our history in Indiana County. So it's a great testament that we're still able to connect to those. So, if there's any questions, I think we have a pretty full panel. Wait till the end. Yeah. All right. Thanks.
All right, next up, we have Shaun Busler. Shaun is a GIS professional and a senior biologist with BioMost Incorporated. His work focuses on watershed restoration, and he's done a lot of work with treating abandoned mine drainage, or AMD. And I had the pleasure of getting to know Shaun when I served on the Evergreen Conservancy Board. I can tell you that his expertise is absolutely mind-blowing. He's been working with AWARE, the Aultman Watershed Association for Restoring the Environment, for more than 20 years. And he's currently the organization's president. So Shaun isn't native to Indiana County, but I think it's safe to say he's fallen in love with the area. And he's truly passionate about the work he's doing to make this an even better and cleaner place. Let's welcome Shaun Busler.
So I actually am a landowner in the county now. My family ended up buying one of the project sites that I worked on about 15 years ago. So Aultman's Run is located just southwest of Indiana. If I can use a highlighter. So, Indiana is right around here. It flows directly into the Conemaugh River Lake. It's been heavily impacted by abandoned mine drainage for probably 100 years. In 1994, the Fish and Boat Commission did a report on the Conemaugh River Lake and Aultman's Run Bay in particular. They said this is not something that should be promoted for fishing, and they weren't going to stock it or anything. So AWARE came about in 2000. to address the issue of AMD. So this is the watershed. You can see that the northern 2/3, 3/4 of the watershed has either been underground mined or surface mined, and that's created the pollution. So far we've done three different projects. In 2002, we started with the SR 286 passive treatment system, which you can see right off of SR 286 outside the town of Aultman. Our next project was in 2011. It's the Reed's Run project. And our ongoing project, because it's been such a bad discharge, is the Neil Run restoration area. So just quickly, I'd love to talk more about all the treatment systems, but I know we don't have time. And we have a display, so if you want to talk to me more about these sites afterwards, that'd be great. This is an aerobic wetland that's treating an alkaline iron discharge. Reed's Run, it was a coal refuse pile. R&P did some reclamation back in the 80s, took out about 3/4 of the coal refuse, but left 1/4 of it located right along the stream, which was killing the stream. So we went in there in 2011 and took out some additional coal refuse and put in a small treatment system for some remaining discharges. That's what that looks like now. And then the Neil Run project is actually, out of all the discharges in the state that are being treated passively, this has the worst water quality of all of them in terms of metals and acidity. So you have the distinction in Indiana County of having, the worst discharge in the state. This project was more involved. There's a lot of things going on with it, but we're still working on it. It needs probably another $1 million worth of treatment system, or if someone's willing to take out the coal refuse, that would take care of the problem. So we have 2 additional projects that are underway. One of them is being completed by BAMR. It's a 80 acres of AML reclamation, abandoned mine land reclamation, taking out some dangerous high walls on the game lands, surface mine pits and spoil piles. And they're also constructing 2 additional treatment systems on game lands. And this is expected to start in 2026. And there's also a remining operation that should be happening at some point. I've been hearing about it for the last 3 or 4 years or longer. And I'm hoping that that's going to happen soon. It's almost 2 million tons of coal refuse that are buried on game lands. If you go on the game lands, you can't see it. It's in the strip pits. They just fill them up and cap them. But it's there and it's causing a lot of pollution. So we could potentially clean up 2 separate streams in that part of the watershed. So as far as water quality improvement, well, we're treating over 250 million gallons per year of water. We're taking out a half or 500,000 pounds per year of acidity, 3,000 pounds per year of manganese, 56,000 pounds per year of aluminum, and over 100,000 pounds per year of iron, just with those 3 sites. And you can see Neil Run is the one that has the most of the metals and acidity. So we've cleaned up about 1 mile of Aultman's Run, 1.5 miles of Reed's Run, but we still have some work to do on Neil Run. So fish are returning, which we are super excited about. This is just downstream of Reed's Run, and this happened shortly after it was restored, and is probably the first time there was fish in it in 60 years. And downstream of game lands, where the stream is wider, deeper in sections, IUP did a study and found 17 different species of fish in the watershed, which is pretty exciting. So this stream used to run orange, and now it's clean enough for kids to play in it. And yeah, at this, we'd like to do a few more projects, but you know, we'd like to stock it with fish. I think we have a really good opportunity here. Chapter 93 in the PA code actually lists it as a trout stock fishery, but it's never been stocked. I asked the Fish and Boat Commission; they have no records of it ever being stocked. So in addition to the treatment systems, we're also pursuing some recreational opportunities and also cleaning up abandoned mine lands. There still is a program called AMLR, the Abandoned Mine Land Economic Revitalization grant that allows you to combine AML reclamation with economic revitalization. So this project involves some coal refuse removal in the town of McIntyre, which is the town had a coal tipple and a coal preparation plant, and they just put refuse everywhere. It's all over the town, and that's what causes the Needle Run discharge as well. So we're going to do some refuse removal in the town of McIntyre. We're going to daylight a stream. I know there's WPC was talking about culverts and how they can be problems. There's 900 feet of culvert in the street, and it's all covered in coal refuse. So we want to daylight that so we could bring it back to the surface. There's a rail trail project, which I'll talk a little bit more about. This is our coal refuse removal area. You can see that one of the landowners actually put up these tires because people were riding their ATVs and dirt bikes and coming down and just making all sorts of dust on, and people in the town of McIntyre didn't want to go outside because of how dusty things were. And so we're going to be taking out at least 10,000 tons. I think it's going to be more than that because I'll show you in this next screen here. We did some test pits, and we were also trying to find the culverts that were buried, and it was just all coal refuse. Like the whole valley is coal refuse. So hopefully we'll be able to take out more of that. I do have an interesting story, but I'll have to tell you later if you want to come over and talk to me about finding those culverts. It was not the easiest thing. So this is some pictures of the different sections of trail. This is, some areas aren't going to need a whole lot of work, but then there's, the areas that have all the coal refuse that, it's going to take a lot more work to get done. And in the end, we want it to look like this. It's going to have a double seal coat on it, so it's going to be a more durable surface. We're going to have about 4.5 miles of trail that are constructed, and it's going to connect 3 different towns. 2 of them were old coal towns, and it's just going to be, I think, a really good improvement for the community. All we have to do is improve some drainage structures and ditches along most of it. So it's pretty open right now because it's being used by the ATVs and dirt bikes. All right, so this is a map of the watershed. It's really hard to see. So the railroad corridor starts up here and comes down and comes up into where the old mines, underground mines were. And it was referred to in some county planning documents as the 10-mile trail. And we're not able to get to the top mile because they replaced a bridge just by filling it in, and we didn't want to deal with some additional work associated with that. So we just decided to stop it there, and it comes all the way down to 286. Now the next, and this actually wasn't our first plan of attack. Like we originally proposed to do some mine land reclamation down here on game lands and then construct the trail on game lands, which at the time was not receptive with the Game Commission. So that's when we went north, and Koch Corporation actually sold us the property. And So it ends up that the game commission decided to go through with the mineland reclamation anyway. So, you know, we got kind of like double the amount of projects in the end because of that. So this is kind of some preliminary ideas right now. Yeah, I'm a GIS professional. I looked at some of the mapping, talked to some of the like John Simonic and Carol Cummins and some others at Aware, and we think that we can connect the Aultman's Run Trail to West Penn Trail, and that's our preliminary mapping. Yeah, we wouldn't have to necessarily use the railroad corridor on game lands, but it'd be nice. But there is a road that goes along that same area. If it was improved a little bit, you know, it could be used for bikes as well. And then there's probably about, I can't read that on this screen, but it's like 1.4 miles, I think would be on public roads, which really aren't used by anybody. And then there's an old township road that could be converted over, you know, to a trail as well on the Army Corps property, a short segment on Newport Road, and then another 2 or so miles on Army Corps property. And this would be the access on the Army Corps property. Yeah, there was something that was already there, you can see here. And so we would just have to come up and around, and you know, there's a ramp already up to it. Something else that we're doing as a watershed group are trash cleanups. We picked up thousands of pounds of trash on the one site, the Reed's Run site. There was over 500 tires just there. We had one this past spring where we partnered with a local church and the fire department, and yeah, those events have been growing significantly. We also have an interesting historical resource in the watershed that we'd like to preserve. There's this, we think it's a lime kiln. I talked to an archaeologist this last week, and yeah, that's what he thinks it is. He looked it up in his inventories that he has access to that normal person doesn't, and he said it hasn't been inventoried by anybody. So it's kind of like an unknown mystery kiln that we'd like to learn a little bit more about and try to preserve it. And I just want to quickly mention that Aware is conducting their first fundraiser. I know they had talked about capital previously. Aware doesn't really have any capital right now, so we're just doing this fundraising event, and we actually are having every dollar that's contributed will be matched up to a total of $5,000 for Aware. And I just wanted to thank all of our partners. You know, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary as a group, and yeah, we wouldn't have been able to, you know, do these projects without all the partners. So that's all I got.
David Lindow is with the Plumier Foundation, and he's going to speak to us a little bit about the redevelopment of the Salzburg Mule Barn to his foundation location. He's the managing director with the foundation, and his organization teaches lost art craft skills. And so I'm just meeting David for the first time, probably like many of you, but I know about him that he is a craftsman, and I think I dare to say, based on what I've learned of him so far, he's a bit of a visionary. So I'm really excited to hear what he has to tell us about his recent transplant to the community of Salzburg. And I think his story is somewhat unique on this panel. He's contributing from the perspective of why and how our community development projects are contagious. And it attracts others to come here and be a part of it and want to live here. And it's really an interesting success story for the community of Salzburg as well. So let's welcome David, please.
I feel a good bit out of place. These people are changing the world, and all I needed was a place to work. The Bible and Shakespeare and the great legends of every major culture are full of madmen doing things either out of desperation or simply because they didn't really understand it was impossible. We were up against a move from a location that was far too expensive to be sustainable. We had virtually no money. We had 3 tractor trailers full of equipment we had to move. And we had a very short timeline. So I found a building. I had about $120,000, and I found a building that would suck up 45,000 or 50,000 of that. And I started cashing in all my social capital. The Plumier Foundation is a palace, a refuge, and a studio. Palace is a place of public amusement or a place of public gathering. We are a refuge because craft is a very lonely work, mostly done in solitude. And we are a place where people can go, gather, and commiserate and learn. And it's a studio as we produce stuff. That picture came from our New York location where I walked in one morning, saw my son working, snapped the picture, and it just became our kind of cover photo. So I began with almost no money, and there were 2 fairly decent sides to a building that was really pretty bad. It was all I could afford, and I didn't have any money, so what do? You know? This was the side I didn't show people whenever I was begging for money. Yeah. After we got all the junk cleared out, we tore into tearing it apart piece by piece, keeping as much of it as we could. But again, when you have no money, you do what you got to do. And the one reason it worked is because Indiana County allows you to do things, quote, as built. So we went to Upstreet Architects, and Tom Harley was highly recommended, and he understood what we were up against. And had we had to go for grants and public money and all that kind of thing, it probably would have cost us 2 to 2.5 times the money it did. But what Tom did for us is he put together, helped us figure out ADA laws, fire codes, where to put exit signs, et cetera, et cetera. Those were the things. And past that, we walked in and started working. Started out with a demolition permit because of the new Saldo law, and that I'll get to that later. And here's pretty much what we had to do. We had to tear out pretty much the entire structure, and we were going to keep the 28-foot long logs, white oak, put in 1850, but we had too much of this, and we ended up tearing them out. And that's all I really had was my friend Chuck. Chuck's the best carpenter I ever met. I've known him for 30-some years. And I remember vividly the founder saying, "I sure hope you trust Chuck, because if something happens there, you're really screwed." And he was absolutely correct. Here's what Chuck put together to level out the second floor. And the inspector walked in and says, "I have no idea what you're doing, but it sure looks like you do." We had to support the roof all the way from the floor, which means we had to cut a knee wall, come up with this complicated system of holding up, straightening the pillars, and then putting the bases underneath the pillars back together. And, it's kind of disconcerting to see the main posts to hold the building together suspended in midair. But we put in a couple of new foundations, but for the most part, the foundations were good and leveled up because we put new walls on the inside, new walls on the outside. We sandblasted the old post and beam structure as well as the floors, et cetera. The bottom sides of the floors, the top didn't need it. And then the back side where we put our machine shop, we had to put in about 4 feet of fill. In the new front side, we put in new floors. There's the back of the building. We added 28 by 30 to it. Broke up the concrete, put it in as fill. That's where the back, we had to put a new foundation in. on the side, the sill was below grade, so the best thing we could do, since the building was really racked at about 5 inches over the height of the building, we dug a new foundation and, put up a new wall in front of it so that it looks straight, you know. There you go. That's the back of the building, and we went at it, and to marry the new structure to it, to make it look like anything presentable, we basically had to almost reconstruct that whole end of the building. Thankfully, Chuck had a few ideas. The boss says, I should say the founder says to me, "Do you have a crew?" And I'm like, "No." But Chuck's very affable. And we found one local guy there, Dustin Young, and Dustin came on, and Chuck said the work is really crappy and the pay's worse. He said, "I'm in," and he was there the entire project. Past that, we used local crews. And then, talking about good government, the borough didn't fight us at all. One of the reasons I really thought Salisbury would work was because they have no zoning, and that's the kind of place we have to be to function. They came over with their Kubota, and they helped us set the I-beam. Otherwise, it would have been another $1,000 for a crane. Used Plum Creek to frame out the back section. I wanted the back section to look like it was from 1890 to 1910, something like that. So I ended up using standing seam. The Heritage and Museum Commission wanted the old and the new to look different, so I used vertical hemlock shiplap so that it would look period correct. And in general, I just wanted it to match the community. Long story short, we tried to make it look like it fit. But the structure, it was pretty crazy. We put in heated concrete in the machine shop and the cabinet shop. Pretty good amount of concrete we poured. New floors, new gas lines. We got the kids from the STEAM Academy down to help us. Their electric. One of the problems they have with the electric program is they don't have enough projects. They desperately need projects for the kids to do. Talk about good government. They've started the STEAM Academy, and they are teaching kids from a relatively poor community to do jobs and stay in the community so that your best and brightest don't flee. And I think that is fantastic, especially since they're getting corporations to fund most of it. I mean, really, it's just construction pictures is meaningful to me. I had a lot of volunteers. The guy on the left up there, he put in about 1,700 hours. The guy in the middle was out for 1 week a month, and it went on and on like that. Talk about funding. The founder got a little nervous because I really didn't have any money, and I was out begging and I don't know, I never thought I was very good at begging, but it turns out I'm not too bad. And we were quite short at the time, and he for his own security wanted to go to the bank and get a construction loan of about $125,000, and I thought, all right. So because we didn't have a general contractor and we didn't go through the normal means, it was just my buddy Chuck and I doing as built. It was a lot of paperwork and a lot of time, and we get through and they finally approve us because we're right down the street and all this kind of stuff. But $25,000 in fees on a $125,000 loan. Now, I'm no financier and I'm not too bright, but that math doesn't work for me. So you talk about stupid. We obviously said, sorry for wasting your time and ours, but got a couple Mennonite kids to come in and put the drywall up. I think you can see one seam. They were fantastic. All the woodwork inside was produced in our cabinet shop. I had 2 tractor trailer loads dropped off at the defunct school up the street where a guy stored them for 9 months at no cost to us. Unbelievably generous. Todd Wagner let us use his truck and his trailer and his forklift, etc. He told us it was going to be $65,000 to put the floors in and finish it. So my son and I learned to do flooring very rapidly. I took some of those boards from underneath those logs and I turned them into things like window sills and things like that. But we We laid all that, we made all the molding. I went down to Home Depot and I looked at the molding and it was so expensive and it was so ugly. I'm thinking, man, I need a Zoloft. And, and I went back to the shop and I went up to the to the sawmill and I bought some wood and we started making moldings and, putting in floors, My son did most of the install, I did most of the finishing. And again, the kids came in and, putting an outlet in 4 inches from the floor really is terrible. Well, we had these kids that did it, and there's the floor finished, so this old building is, and look, I just needed a place to work, and we used leftover siding for some of the trim. Basically, I just grabbed whatever I could get and we made stuff. We designed the rails, built the rails, and then I found on Facebook Marketplace these cabinets, and we reinstalled those. They were up in Massachusetts. I found some glass in Chicago, etc. Here's what the front looked like before. That's what the front looked like afterward. My wife's good with plants, and she's really good with color. And here's the inside. And it turns out it's a really nice place to work. People come by and say, what is a furniture shop? No, it's a machine shop. And I would encourage any of you, if you're down in town, stop by. If the front door is locked, try the side. We're usually there. We're usually there from about 7:38 in the morning till about 10 at night. But I never asked anybody for money. That's the Indiana Turners Group. We invited 3 other Turners groups. But it turns out I never asked anyone for money, and we got about 30 principal people that were $2,500 or more, and they put us into that building debt-free. We're in there at under $130 a square foot for brand new, essentially brand new commercial space. And it's about people. There's one of our interns. He spent 3 months in the summer with us. He's from the North Bennett Street School studying cabinet work. And Spencer spent a month with us this summer. He's a luthier from Northern Illinois. I think that's the end of the slideshow, but I got a couple thoughts on things to do and not to do if you really want to improve your community. 1, don't write bad law. And number 2, don't implement bad law. Bad law is terrible. It affects a lot of people. The lack of good law affects everybody. Write good law. When you write a saldo that's the same for a 200 square foot ice cream shack as it is for a 16-acre building, it causes people real problems. And if you have to get an engineering study, and you got to get a survey before you can put up a 200 square foot ice cream shack, I'm going to tell you it ain't going to happen. We had 80 square feet of non-permeable surface. And if it hadn't been for Josh Krug shepherding me through the process, I'd still be scratching my head. Writing good law is very important. Another thing I think is stop calling it revitalization. I moved to Salzburg because of the vitality. I didn't move there to save anybody. I didn't move in there to improve anybody's lives. I moved there because it was a good place for me to move there. And it's a great place for me to bring craftsmen in. And I got a dream of turning it into a craft community. I don't know if I'll ever realize it, but I'll die trying if I don't. But you gotta have vision. You gotta have objective and measurable goals, and you gotta have a plan. And in this community, since I've been here, every day I think more and more it was the right place to move to. I'm from Northeast Pennsylvania, and they're making bad decisions. It's a really good place. And since then, I've seen the economic development stuff coming in from Homer City. That's really impressive. But the group that's coming into Tunnelton, that's you, right? That's a story we need to hear. How much are you putting into that project there? $170 million coming into Tunnelton to do what?
Turn waste coal into jet fuel and extract rare earth elements.
Turn waste coal into jet fuel and extract rare earth elements. Getting rid of refuse that he's desperate to get rid of and turning it into jet fuel. That's our community. Are you revitalizing anything? Are you really revitalizing anything? Or are you just there to make money for your company?
Cleaning up the legacy.
Cleaning up a legacy and creating a new one. I'm glad you're close by. I don't know what we can do together, but I like you. Anyway, we're in downtown Salzburg. I tell everybody, I will not give you the address. If you can't find it, you'll probably hurt yourself in there. I don't want you in there. But anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to tell the story.
There's really exciting stuff happening here. So next up, we have three individuals speaking about Indiana Borough's 8th Street redevelopment project. First, we'll hear from Trajan Jones, who's a planning and zoning official with Indiana Borough, and he's currently pursuing his master's degree at IUP in planning and geography, geology, and environment and planning. Not sure if I said that all right. That's a mouthful. Okay. And we'll have Seth Koch, who is the lead student planner at Stuart Group Consulting. And he's currently a senior at IUP pursuing his bachelor's in applied anthropology and a minor in sustainability studies. Seth has a particular interest in Appalachian studies and the unique resources and challenges of the region. He has some really interesting research under his belt from what I understand. And then we'll hear from Shanna Scordo. Shanna is co-owner and president of Earthcraft Landscaping, and her firm employs more than 40 people here locally. But on a personal level, Shanna is also very active and a contributing member of the community. She serves on the board of directors for the Indiana County Chamber of Commerce and as the second vice president for Downtown Indiana Incorporated. So we'll go ahead and welcome these three individuals to tell us what's happening in Indiana.
So I'm Shanna Scordo. I had the pleasure of getting to work on the planning process of the 8th Street Initiative, which is, you might also know as the 8th Street Corridor. And if, how do I get here? There we go. Nope. Something's wrong, isn't it?
That was
That one. Oh yeah, this is the one I wanted you to see first. So just to explain what the 8th Street Corridor is, if you look at this picture, if you can recognize that the rectangle there at the top is the downtown historic region or business community. And then down at the bottom corner, that's the IUP campus boundaries. And so that red rectangle then represents the area that we're calling the 8th Street Corridor. And this is a connector. It's the closest / most intuitive connection between the campus and the downtown. And the idea is to be able to transform this into a vibrant, welcoming, linear space that just seamlessly connects the campus life with the energy of downtown. So just bringing kind of two different energies together. And the reason that this ties in with what we're talking about, with what everybody else has discussed, is that the trailhead for the Hoodlebug Trail actually comes into that space as well. And so it's really critical that we start connecting our in-town spaces with our trails. And this is one way that we can do that. So this focus is not a completely new idea. The idea of the 8th Street Corridor has been around for a long time. It's shown up on a number of different strategic plans from a number of different organizations. And even when we did the streetscape renovation downtown 10, 12 years ago, this was on that list as a priority as well. It was in that design, in that plan, but they just ran out of money. And so it's just never been a top priority. But this year we're able to make it more of a priority because of some funding that we got from the Pennsylvania Realtors Association. And so our local chapter is the Indiana, Westmoreland, and Mon Valley chapter. And Sherry Kunkel is very active in that. And she was really instrumental in bringing some ideas to us on some funding that we could get from them. specifically for planning and for placemaking. So we talked about different, so this was in downtown Indiana, in the organization, Downtown Indiana Incorporated. So she came to Joe Kinter, they started talking about what some different opportunities would be to be able to spend that grant money in a way that would prioritize the planning of an area that would feel like we're doing some placemaking. So creating some space that we want to be in. And so ultimately, the 8th Street corridor made a lot of sense to be able to focus on. And we were awarded a grant we applied for, and we're awarded a grant for $7,000 from that organization. And we intended to just engage Michael Baker International ourselves to be able to start planning that space. But coincidentally, the borough's strategic plan had rolled out around that same time. And if you haven't had a chance to take a look at the borough's strategic plan, it's called Indiana 2030. And it is fantastic. Now it's a little long. It's like 100 some pages, so maybe you won't read the whole thing, but it's pretty intuitive as you just kind of scroll through it. And it highlights some just really great projects that they want to focus on. And one of the projects that they call one of their catalytic projects is the 8th Street corridor. And so there just was a lot of synergy there where we realized that if we could work together on this and be able to put some of our funding together, then we could be a lot more impactful in how we could spend our dollars together. So we got the $7,000 grant through Downtown Indiana, and then the borough was able to contribute $20,000 of community development block grant money, which is, it goes toward the same sort of thing. We're trying to do placemaking and planning for different things in the borough. So with that $27,000, we were able to work together to engage Michael Baker to start doing some really great planning, which these guys are going to tell you more about. It was such an exciting experience to be part of. It was very tactical, it moved very swiftly. For those of us, I'm sure a lot in this room have worked on projects where you're trying to get several organizations to work together and how hard and exhausting that can be. This effort was so seamless and went so well. And that it was really refreshing to see that two groups could work together when you have the same vision and the same view and the same priorities, and those priorities have been kind of given the green light by the powers that be. In this case, the Borough Council had already spent time on the strategic plan, figuring out that this was a priority. And so it was just kind of like, okay, let's go, let's do this. We had a very short timeline and we pushed through it as a group. And the people at the borough, our team at the borough right now, they're such just strong individuals, workhorses, lots of sweat equity went into it. They just pushed and never stopped working, didn't take their eyes off the prize. And so it's really exciting to see that we, out of this, are going to have a great plan to be able to implement in this corridor. And so I will go ahead and let Trajan talk to you about that.
So for this project, the driving question really was, how do we create a space that people are going to want to spend some time in? If you're familiar with this corridor right now, aside from the Hoodlebug Trailhead, there's really not a lot of really anything there. There's parking lots, and that's pretty much it. There's no local businesses in that corridor specifically. So like I said, that was the driving question. How can we create an area that people want to spend some more time in? Seth will go over some of the ideas that we received through the charrette process that we got back from the community. But when we're looking at it, we saw this in kind of two spheres. So highlighted in the red is the public spaces. So that's what we had control over. We're looking at the streets, we're looking at the sidewalks. You can see, I'm not sure if my mouse will go, but the one on the right, that square, that's the Indiana Borough parking lot. And then the square on the bottom, that's where Pratt Hall just came down on IUP's campus. So like I said, that's where we wanted to focus our efforts in terms of the charrette, is we want to look at the space we control and what can we do there to then encourage, in blue, the private space. So the top left, that's S&T Bank. Below that is Traverse Commons. And then to the right, we have some individual student housing rentals. And then up in the top right, that is the Rose Building. So like I said, through the charrette process, we were able to engage with local business owners, residents, students, and Seth will talk about that a little bit more. But through that process, we were able to get a sort of preliminary design, like I said, to answer that question of what will go here and how can we encourage people to spend some more time.
All right. Thank you, Trey. My name's Seth Koch. I'm a senior at IUP. And first, I want to thank you guys for listening to us. It feels good for myself to speak alongside professionals in the field when I'm just a student. But first, I'm going to start talk about our kind of project team. So we had a project team for this initiative where we wanted to make a project team that was representative of the community and the different entities in Indiana Borough. So on our team, there is Stuart Group Consulting, Downtown Indiana, the Indiana County Office of Planning and Development, Michael Baker, IUP, some clubs from IUP students that attend the university. And together as a project team, we kind of came together and we knew that we wanted this project to really focus on the community. And we wanted our results and our data and our vision of the 8th Street corridor or the 8th Street initiative to represent what the community wants. So going into that, we, over a span of a few months, did a dozen outreach opportunities. Our outreach was usually in downtown Indiana during events like the Taste and Tour, Italian Fest, Downtown Indiana's Third Thursdays, the Farmers Market. We were on IUP campus a few times at IUP Club Day, just kind of tabling and getting the community to know about this project. So the point of the tabling was to, we wanted community members, IUP students, members of the town to know about the project, hear it. We wanted to engage their minds and have them think about it. So what we did is we had some interactive posters where we would ask for community feedback to kind of just engage them. We would also have flyers to spread awareness, to tell them about, our charrette that's coming up. And so we had a really great time doing engagement with the community. Like I said, we had around a dozen, engagement events, and it was a lot of fun. And it was great to hear back from the community because that's, as a project team, what we really wanted is we wanted community feedback. The most successful, and I think the thing we're most excited about was the engagement at the 8th Street Charrette. So what this was a multi-day charrette, or basically like a charrette is a few day project that has interactive workshops where we invite, targeted stakeholders, the community in to give us feedback on the project and on the street. In late September, we had a charrette at the Artisan Cafe. We had around a few hundred community members come in and kind of give us their ideas on what makes a great street, what they would like to see in a street, and that kind of sort. So moving on to the results of what we heard at the stakeholder session, at the charrette, and pretty much just all the engagement we've done. It's been pretty overwhelming. First off, I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to go over it briefly, but please ask us more in detail afterwards, some of the more detailed vision and ideas of this project. But one thing that was really, I think, that stood out a lot was people, IUP students, community members want 8th Street to be a people-centric street. What I mean by that is we want 8th Street to be a street for people and not for cars. We want to obviously share the space, but we want to have the street be safe to the public 24/7 all the time. So this means improved lighting. This means wider sidewalks for larger groups of people or the ADA community. This means safer intersections and crosswalks. I think that's all on our heart right now after the events that happened this past weekend. So we really just want our streets to be people-centric. Another theme that came up during, us listening to the community was this emerging theme of place versus space. And so what that basically means is we want, and Trey kind of talked about this a little bit, we want IUP to be a place. We want there to be identity and character of IUP and downtown Indiana. And so right now, if you go on 8th Street, you might call it a space. There's nothing really there. There's no primary uses. There's a few parking lots and you kind of just walk through. So I think our goal of this project is to improve the street just through the safety. Like I said, the better intersections, more lighting, but we also want to make this a street that is a place and not a space. So we want, 8th Street to have characteristic and aesthetic. One way we could do that we mentioned at the charrette is we can kind of extend the streetscape streetscape from Philadelphia Street onto 8th Street. So that means maybe, you know, putting benches down on 8th Street, extending the kind of classic Philadelphia lamps, the street lamps that we have, putting them on 8th Street. Doing kind of street art that represents both downtown Indiana and IUP. Lastly, one thing that we talked about was parking. It's been really interesting to talk about parking these past few months because, you know, it's a buzzword. People love it and people hate it. One thing we want to do with this project, and the community members also kind of suggested, is we want to keep the parking that's being used, but also make sure that we're using the space to the maximum usage. So we have exciting ideas like having temporary parking, having food trucks that might be open at certain hours, and then being parking spaces for other times of the day. So those are just a few ideas. And yeah, if you guys have questions, just please come to us. Like I said, we don't have a lot of time. There's so much that came out of this project. We're all passionate about it. So please talk to us and we'll tell you more about it.